So I'm going to. Okay. Well, I'd like to start off by asking you, what is your full name, please?
Daniel J. Dorchak, Dorchak,
And when and where were you born, sir?
in Pennsylvania, Cannonsburg, Pennsylvania, 17 miles southwest of Pittsburgh.
Wow. And what year was that, sir?
Pardon?
What year were you born?
March 19, 1924.
So you're 101 years old now.
101 going on 102.
Wow, that's incredible, sir.
Yeah,
Can you
thank you.
tell me?
I'm still here. My
Can
brain is still sharp, though.
I'm very excited to hear you tell your story, sir.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about growing up during the 1920s and
In
1930s?
1920s, the big depression was there. My father came from Austria, and he wanted it during beginning of World War One. He wanted to get away from the Germans, so he walked across Germany, got on a tramp steamer, and came to America.
Wow.
It was 1916. He was here about a year, and the war was starting to be really intense. And they drafted him and promised him his citizenship papers, which he did. He was in the army. I have pictures of him in the army uniform, and he was a musician, so he played in the band. He could play any kind of instrument. He was fabulous, and I grew up in that period. He worked in a steel mill in near Western Pennsylvania. You either worked in a steel mill or the coal mines, and he worked in a steel mill. I was 16. I'm sorry. I was 17 years old when World War II started, December of 41. I was a senior in high school, and I was soon to turn 18. President Roosevelt just reduced the draft age from 21 to 18. So I was right in perfect timing to be drafted. But I enlisted in the Army Air Corps and I wanted to fly. So I went to basic training in Miami, Florida. And then back in those days, President Roosevelt took so many people in, privates and all, he didn't have enough trained officers to train them. So instead of going to flight school, I went to University of Florida. I had to become an officer then. You had to have 2 years college education. I got my 60 credits, yeah, 30 credits rather, in less than a year.
Wow.
And at the University of Florida, so I had my 2 year credits. Then they start my flight training. I went through flight training in western part of the United States, California, New Mexico, Arizona, and I became an officer. I was qualified as a bombardier navigator.
Mm.
They classified you according to your ability when you answered a lot of questions, and they thought I'd make a better bombardier than a pilot. So they made me a bombardier navigator, which I went through school, and then I ended up in China in 1944.
Before we
Uh,
get to your combat service, can I ask you a couple of questions about growing up and
okay, yes,
depression? Did you have any siblings?
no, I well, to tell you the truth, when I was born on a Saturday night at home, and they called the doctor, and the doctor came and delivered me, but he dropped me. And they say I cried for 3 weeks. That doctor took me to the Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they didn't have x-rays like they do now, MRIs and all this. So I stayed there for a number of months, and he hurt my back, broke my back,
Mm.
and it finally healed. And I said, but I couldn't walk until I was almost 3 years old. My
Okay.
sisters resented it because they had to carry me around. So I was not a popular. I was one of five. We had three sisters, and I had a younger brother. And we grew up where my dad and mother were very, very devout Catholics, and I had to go to church every Sunday, which I enjoyed. In fact, they thought I was going to become a priest,
Really.
uh, but I wanted to fly, and so I gave that up. But then I was drafted. I was enlisted in the Army Air Corps. Go ahead. You want a question now?
Yeah, so how did the Great Depression impact your family?
Well, everything was. You had no credit cards. You had to pay cash for everything you ever bought. My dad built our house. It was a two-bedroom house. It was small, and we lived in it. Uh, I remember how crowded it was all the time. But you were back in those days. We were a little better off because my dad did work in a steel mill. He was making $45 a week, which is enough to sustain us. And I give him credit that he did everything on his own. He was a musician. He was a humble man, and I just loved him. But then I went. Okay, I'll stop there. I'll let you ask.
Thank you. What inspired your interest in aviation?
I used to make model airplanes out of balsa wood, uh, and I always was. I love to see an airplane. I love to see it fly, and I wanted to be one. So I did, and I was happy I did it. Okay.
And did you go, what year did you graduate from high school?
1942,
Okay,
the war had just started,
right.
and I was 18 years old in March of 42, and I went in service in July of 42.
Do you
Yeah.
remember when and where you were when Pearl Harbor was bombed?
Pardon?
Do you remember where you were when Pearl Harbor was bombed?
I was, when I was, Pearl Harbor was born, I was 17 years old. We had just come from church. The whole family went to church, and we are having luncheon. Then my brother and I were going to go outside and toss football around. And my dad, we didn't have television those days, just had radio. So he turned the radio on to get the news, and it was just all blaring about bombing of Pearl Harbor. And that was a bad sign for me. It turned out a good sign because I got away from being a coal miner or a steel worker in Western Pennsylvania. So I got to get the ability to go to college and get an education. Okay.
Could you tell me about the day you enlisted and what that was like?
Uh, I enlisted. It was 2 days, and I had to go to Pittsburgh to the recruiting office. Uh, I went by a streetcar. They had a streetcar running from Canonsburg, Pennsylvania to Pittsburgh. So I got on that, and it was all day taking all these exams. They were written exams and all, see how I qualified to go in service. The next day was physical. They had to check everything out. I passed everything, and they told me I'd be called anytime. So I went home after enlisting, and I waited for about 2 months, and they finally called me. Yeah. So I had a good, well, it was a humble beginning. We had no money. Uh, I worked the last year of my high school. I went to school from 7:30 to 3:30. Then at 4:30, I went to the Continental Can, and I had to feed a press making tops and bottoms of real tin cans. And I had these 36-inch piece of aluminum. I dropped in a press, and it pressed out these cans. Uh, so my whole last year of high school was devoted to working. And the summer that I did, that I worked after I graduated, I worked in for a huckster. He was a nice Jewish man, and I'd go to Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania on Saturday morning early to the market. He'd buy all these groceries, I mean, all these fruits and vegetables, and it went truck. And we would go out through the streets of Canonsburg, and he would sell the tomatoes and whatever we bought. And I remember uh, that was delightful. I love that man. But he always had lunch. He took me to the same place for lunch, and I remember what I got: a beef stew and a Pepsi Cola, and I was just happy as a lark. But my mother would give me 50 cents. I was making $25 a week. My mother would give me 50 cents to enjoy on a Saturday. Most Saturdays I worked, but a lot of times I went to movie. I bought a Mallow cup and a Pepsi for a nickel. The movies was 11 cents, so I still had about 10 cents left over. I thought I was rich, but I'm glad that I got out of there. Go ahead.
And what type of student were you in school?
Pardon?
What type of student were you in school?
I was number two in the class.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I was very lucky. Yeah. Somebody beat me out being number one. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and how did your parents feel when you enlisted?
Well, they knew I was going to be going somewhere because by that time I was healthy and I never missed school. I have all these certificates for completing a year without missing a day of school. I went to school sick a lot of times, I know, but I was so devoted to getting education and getting doing better myself than a coal miner or steel worker in Canterbury. Yeah,
And where did you go for your basic training?
Miami, Florida,
Okay.
Miami Beach. Yeah, we lived it up there. We lived right on the beach, and we had a park right across the street from the hotel where we stayed, and we do our marching and learning to march and take orders from there. From there, I went to the University of Florida. I spent almost a year getting that college credits that they insisted I had. And then from there, we went to California and learned they classify you there as to be a pilot and bombardier navigator. And that's when I went to bombardier school. And then they assigned me to a B-24 bomber as a 4-inch bomber, 4 engine bomber. And it was the workhorse of the Air Corps at that time. They had B-17s, but they didn't take the abuse that B-24 did. B-17s was used mostly in the European operation because the missions were much shorter. The average mission was about 5 hours, 2.5 hours there, and 2.5 hours back. Ours was 11 hours
Wow.
in a B-24, and I sat in a 13-inch round stool. Can you imagine sitting 13 hours on it? I mean, 11 hours on a little stool? Oh, God.
That's crazy.
But well, I did it. At first, they had the B-24 was enclosed, and it was nice because you were up front. I'm sitting right up front of the airplane. But somebody got the wise idea after the middle of the war to put a gun turret right in front. And every time he turned that gun turret, there was a rubber boot on each side supposed to keep out the air. Well, sometimes you get 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 feet. It's 50 degrees below zero. And that's coming in my neck. That's where my bomb sight is. I hated that,
Oh
but
yeah.
he did it, and we lived through it.
Going back to to your training, what was the hardest part of training to be a bombardier?
Uh, I never had a problem with it. Uh, no, I did have one of the blunders of my life was it was a Sunday before graduation, and in Sunday afternoon we were in the barracks, and my friend did something to keep me off, so he ran out the other end of the barracks, I knew he was going to come around the front, and when he was going to open that door, we had these little tin cans with sand for cigarette butts at doors. Everybody smoked back in those days. I didn't, but everybody else did. So I picked that up, and when he opened the door, I threw it on him. But it wasn't him. It was our commanding officer. Oh, that was the worst night of my life. I Everybody kept saying, "You're going to be washed out. You have to go back to classification. You'll be a gunner." And he said, "Dorchak, you report to me at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning at my office." So I didn't sleep a bit that night. So I finally got to his office. I said, "Cadet Dorchak reporting his duty, sir." He said, "Dorchak, I looked at your record. You have a pretty good record. I'm going to let you graduate because my mother was coming from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Deming, New Mexico. Took almost a week on train to get there. And here I was going to be busted. So he says, I'm going to let you graduate, but you'll not graduate as a second lieutenant. You'll graduate as a warrant officer, which is one grade below a commissioned officer. But he let me in. So I still got my wings, got my, I had blue bars instead of the gold, and everything went on as usual. It took me about 6 months to earn my commission as a second lieutenant, and I stayed in the service. Well, you going a little further for that. I'll let you ask questions.
Well, after you graduated, where were you sent to first?
After I graduated, sent to Deming, New Mexico. I did all my flight training in the Southwest, either New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and it was different phases you had to go through. You had to be an aerial gunner, you had to be a navigator. I was the on a plane. They had 50 caliber machine guns, and my duty as flying was also to drop bombs. But I was also the gunner officer. If anybody had a problem with a 50 caliber, I was supposed to fix it. But that was my secondary duty. So I, my training was intense, but I made it, and I was sitting on the top of the grade. I keep reminding you of that, but I did have a good ability to look at targets, and we used to drop flour sandbags, 5 pound sandbags full of flour. That was how we practiced bombs, dropping bombs, and you see that flour scoot when you hit the ball. But I generally hit what I was supposed to hit. Uh, Pretend it was a bomb. Okay.
Mm. Sorry, where did you go after New Mexico then?
I graduated in May the 20th, 1944. And from there, I went to Walla Walla, Washington for, we formed a crew, 10 of us, and we learned to fly together and do things together. And from there, they sent me to China. And I flew over the hump, the Himalayas mountains, and the Flying Tigers had a base right at the far end of the Himalaya Mountains in Kunming. That's where the Flying Tigers originated. Flying Tigers were a group of men 6 months before we went into the war. They volunteered to go to China, and they operated as a team, and they got $500 for every Japanese plane they shot down. So they were doing pretty good. And then the war started. So then they had the ability to either stay in the Army Air Corps or retire or go back or join something else. Most of them stayed with us, or some of them went to the Marine Corps, Navy, but they all stayed into war doing something. Okay.
And how did you react when you were first assigned to the China, Burma, India theater?
Our main duty in China was to disrupt the transportation of supplies from northern China and Korea and Japan down to French Indochina, which is now Vietnam. That's where all the fighting was going on. So our main mission was to disrupt transportation supplies. So this is how we did. We bombed on bridges, marshaling yards, ammunition dumps. We generally did not drop any on population. That was one of the things. General Chenault didn't want to kill a lot of people. He was our commanding officer. Uh, but I flew my first mission. I flew from Kunming, China. It took 5.5 hours to get to Hong Kong. We bombed the Kowloon docking area where all the transports were, and I got within 100 miles, I guess, of the target. And I said, "This is not bad." I thought combat would be terrible, and I was pleased that it was going to be like this. But then 5 minutes later, man, all hell broke loose. Fighters start swarming through and firing at us. And then when the fighters left, and the aircraft was a hand grenade in the sky, and they kept you could just see all this flak everywhere, man. And then I realized what wars are. I put my flak helmet on. I put my flak suit up with my neck. I looked like a turtle, but and then I was supposed to drop bombs. And 15 minutes before you get to the target, the pilot called down and says, it's your airplane. So I fly it during the most crucial part of the whole mission. Because if my bombs didn't hit where they're supposed to, you move, the whole mission was useless. But I wanted to, in a northern bomb site we used was really the first computer that was made. It was a phenomenal thing. It was so protected that if we had to bail out or we had to destroy the B-24 so the enemy wouldn't get it.
Mm.
But we got through that, and I
Wow.
flew up until May. I was on. I guess I had to fly 35 missions to qualify to go home. I did my 35, and then I signed up for another 35. Like I'm not, but I did. And on May the 15th, am I getting too far ahead of myself?
No, no, go
Okay.
ahead.
On May the 15th, I have a book called Chenault's Forgotten Warriors. I have it here somewhere. It's all about the 308th Bomb Group, which was what they relied on, how dangerous it was for us. And they mentioned this mission that I was on. But before that, in February, the Navy sent a communique to our headquarters that they wanted a B-24 to go from Kunming, China to Saigon, which was in French Indochina, now Vietnam. It was going to be a 13-hour flight, and that's about the maximum a B-24 will go. We had to put extra tanks in. We have a crew of 10 with machine guns. We cut that down to 5. We wanted the plane as light as we could. And we went down within Saigon. And on the bomb site, I had was called extended vision. I could turn that extended vision on, and I could see a great distance in front of me, longer than the eye could see. And I spotted the convoy. The Japanese were building up a convoy to attack, and they were try to keep it hidden. They did it. It was on inland. It was not on the coast. So we finally down there with my extended vision. I found out where these 40 ships were getting prepared to attack something. I re-radioed into the Navy. The next day, the Navy went in and destroyed 40 of them. The headlines came out in the paper. Admiral Halsey sinks 40 Japanese ships. And it was because of what we did. I got an air medal for that. Yeah, that was a long mission. I'm still on that 13-inch seat. That was terrible.
I'd like to ask you a
And
couple of questions about that flying over the hump. Um,
okay, the
going.
Mount Everest is.
Let him ask the question first.
Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. Tell me.
Yeah, you want to know about the hump. The Mount Everest is 35,000 feet high. The average peak in the Himalaya Mountain was 17,000 feet, and we're flying at 12,000 feet. Now we're flying in the valleys, and if you hit a cloud in the valleys, you got to rely on your navigator to get you out of there. You can't see anything. Mountains on each side of you, and many B-24s were lost. But when we went on our relaxed, they sent me to China, to India. I flew over the hump. There were three of us, three planes. We got out of it. We hit a cloud in the Himalaya Mountains. When we got out, only two of us. They never did find that other plane. Once you dropped into the ground there, the foliage was so heavy that your plane just disappeared. So, in fact, they're still finding some of the airplanes that were destroyed in 1944, 45. Okay. Then on uh, March, May the 20th, we were attacking. No, but I'll go back for a little further. The Air Force, the Army Air Force at that time, they discovered the uh, Azon bomb. Azon bomb was called A bomb. It was for azimuth. I could guide the bomb sideways. I could not go forward and backwards, which is called rate. So I went sideways, and it was called the azimuth. So I had the azimuth bomb, and we had they put the A bomb. I had a transmitter in a plane on my bomb site, and the bomb had a radio receiving set in the fin of the bomb. So I could guide the bomb. As soon as the bomb dropped, a big flare went off. I could trace that bomb all the way down. And we had six bombs, 1,000-pound bombs. And we're attacking a bridge. The Yellow River Bridge was one of the biggest bridges in China. And the Air Corps at that time, they were compelled to bomb and destroy that airplane. They would send crews over there, airplanes after airplane, to try to destroy it. On May the 20th, I had six bombs. I used the Azon bomb. I got four bridges in that one day. Four. One of the bombs was a dud, and the other bomb exploded prematurely. But the other four, they really captured every bomb bridge. It's in this book too. That I'll show you, and see if you can find the book in the library there. It's called Chanel's Forgotten Warriors. But anyway, we dropped the bombs, and I left my compartment down in front of the airplane. I went up on the flight deck, and I stood between the pilot and the co-pilot. The pilot was our commanding officer, and he takes this B-24, big as an airliner, down 75 feet off the ground, looking for what's called targets of opportunity. Well, he found a railroad bridge, and he followed it, and it was a Japanese troop train. So he ordered the gunners to fire away, and they did, and he made one pass. Then he made another pass, and he told the co-pilot, oh, before that, when I got up on the deck, he got out of his seat and hugged me and sparring with me. He was so happy that we got such a successful mission. He radioed back to the headquarters that the mission was fully successful. Anyway, then he takes his bomber down, and he follows railroad tracks, got the railroad troop train. He ordered the gunners to fire. So he made one pass, then he made another pass, and he turned to the co-pilot. He said, hey, Tom, those little bastards are shooting at us. That's in this And why wouldn't they? You're 75 feet from them. This is the book that I'm referring to.
I'll have to pick a copy up for myself, sir.
You can get this through Amazon. You can buy it.
I'll definitely buy a copy then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, well, let me tell you. I'll read this. What happened here?
Okay.
Uh, our commanding officer was quite a guy. He had to bail out. I had to. Wait a minute. He had to bail out one time, and he bailed out in cannibals. They ate people. They were so primitive back in Indochina and Burma, and they were, I guess, they were going to eat him. But he noticed that he was our commanding officer, but we carried a first aid kit in our vest in case we ever shot. So he found out the chief's son had an infected foot, so he takes all his medication from this thing, and he treated it. The captain, I mean the chief of that tribe, let him walk out. That was 3 months before this. It's in this book too. His name is Major Marshall. But let me and give me my good
I think
glasses.
I've heard about that story.
Huh?
I think I've heard about the story of the man who was
You,
able to help out the chief's
we,
child.
oh, is that right?
Yeah, I've read
You
another
heard
book.
about it
I,
already. Well, you heard about it, huh? This is what he says. Since two important bridges at Shaho had not been attacked, another one plane raid with Major Harrison Marshall as pilot was sent there with Azon bombs on May the 15th. One bridge on the north side of the city had one span, possibly two, knocked down. Two runs were made against a bridge on the south side of the city, which directed both hit on both spans. With this encouragement and more bombs left, the crew attacked an unbridged bridge in Shanghai, and one was knocked down. After these successful attacks, Marshall sighted a railroad track standing still in the yards at Sheo. He directed to make the low-level machine guns that, while P-51s, they were our escorts, flew cover overhead. As he descended, he saw one that was loaded with enemy troops. When he marred over the yard, the B-24s, those and belly gun nose gunners belly blasted away. He pulled up and made two more packs. On the last one, the plane was met with intense small arms fire. Marshall turned to the co-pilot and said, "Hey, Tom, those little bastards are shooting at us." "Well, why wouldn't you? You're 75 feet from them and they have rifles." They were Marshall's last words. A single bullet entered the cockpit and struck the major in the head. It pursued the cockpit and hit Lieutenant Daniel Dorchak, the bombardier, in the neck. He was not badly wounded, but Marshall died instantly. The plane was flown back to the base by the co-pilot, and that's how. Then I ended up in a hospital about a week. But okay, that takes care of that mission. Well,
what mission was that? What number mission?
that was on May the 20th. I still had, well, I could go home right after that bombing, after I come out of the hospital. But I volunteered to keep flying, and I did. I ended up with 50 some missions. Uh, and during the end of the near the ending of the war, we were going to be assigned to Okinawa, they were going to invade Japan. But that's when the atomic bomb was dropped, and we didn't have to go there.
What
Uh,
made you sign up for those additional 35 missions?
I had nothing to do. I had no girlfriends or anything like that. My mother used to write to me. Most of the guys had girlfriends or wives, and they would get letters from them, and I didn't get any of that. So I had nothing else to do but fly. And I guess I was pretty good at what I did because the major put me on his crew, They took me off my basic crew when I went there, and we lived like this, like they did in Mad Bag. No, during that's how we lived, like MASH.
Yes, yes, I,
Yeah, and then I kept a log of every mission I was on, and let me get here.
and you flew 50 missions in total, is that right?
Uh, Here is the one mission that I. That's the mission I was on
Could
when I
you
shot.
raise up the picture a bit, please? Like, a bit higher.
You got it?
I can't see it yet.
Okay.
Could you bring it a bit further back, please? Okay, now I see it. Oh, so you would write every mission that you were on just like that in that book?
Yeah.
Wow. So you had the complete log of every one.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I served in in the war, and I did what I had to do. And then the war ended, but I stayed in the air. I stayed in the Air Force Reserve. So I stayed, and they made me when I was in flying in China. They only had so many officers, so they made give everybody an additional duty. You either messel officer, postal officer. They made me mortuary officer. I never saw a dead body like overseas, and here I am supposed to know what to do, but unfortunately, I never saw any dead bodies. They were all, if they were missing, they were presumed dead. And I would have to write to the families and tell them what happened and send all their personal effects. That was my duty as a mortuary officer. But when I discharged from the service after 22 years, I went to mortuary school, become a funeral director, and I was a retired. I worked in the funeral business for 50 years, and I retired from that. So I've been retired 30 years now.
Wow.
Uh, so
I'd
I
like
tell
to,
young, go ahead.
I'd like to ask you a couple more questions about the war and your flying.
Okay.
Could you walk me through a complete mission day, like from waking up in the
Yeah.
morning to debriefing?
We all went as soon as we landed. Oh, by the way, on one flight, this was in March of 44, March 45. We went to Canton and then we went to Hong Kong and bombing the Kowloon docks. That's where the shipping magnet was. And we went down there and the plane got hit by anti-aircraft. Well, the skin of a B-24 is like Reynolds wrap. You put your finger through it. But I'm just kidding that. But it took a lot of abuse. So that when we got hit one time, it ruptured the hydraulic system. The hydraulic system in a B-24 is all red, looked like blood, and the whole plane was covered with this crap. And the pilot lost his ability to control what couldn't he couldn't control lowering the landing gear. He lost a lot of control because all was used on hydraulic system. So we got hit, and he flew us back to it. We had an advanced base behind Japanese lines. That one week we captured it, next week the Japanese captured it back. We went back and forth. So we knew we were in trouble. The plane was not reacting like it should. So he got over the advanced base and asked us if we wanted to. We could either bail out or land with the airplane. Now, the airplane was coming in hot. It didn't have the wheels down, it didn't have control over the brakes. So we all decided to stay with the airline, with the airplane. And as soon as he landed, as soon as he hit the ground, screaming fire erupted from the back of the plane. We skidded down the runway, went off on a tangent, went on a circle, grass area, a circle run. As soon as we landed and we could get out, 10 of us got out of that airplane in about 30 seconds. And about 10 seconds later, the plane exploded. I have a picture of just a tail and the wings, tail tips and the end of the fuselage, but we all survived. And
Wow.
the Japanese were coming in on the other end of the runway. So we did radio the base and tell them to have a C-47, which is a cargo plane, standing by to take us out of there if we landed safely. And but we did, and we got on that airplane. And as we were getting on it, the Japanese were coming on the other end of the airport, but we got away. Yeah,
Wow.
that was something. It was terrifying. I never wanted to leave a good airplane. I didn't like to. I never wanted to bail out. Okay.
That's a crazy story. Um,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, moving on from that, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you, what were the conditions like on the bases, the living conditions?
Uh, well, that was the only theater of operation that the United States government did not feed their troops. They paid the Chinese government to feed us, and we didn't know what we were eating. Uh, Cattle, dogs, cats, rats. They fixed that. We never knew what we were getting, and everybody lost weight. I mean, I was skinny, and my pilot lost enough weight to get TB, tuberculosis, and they just didn't take care of it. But on Fridays, we did get a K ration, and on Fridays they brought in these cans of beer for us. Well, I didn't drink, but it was in November. So I'd sit in the officers club and I told them, save the cans. I had a barrel outside the officers club. I said, put your cans in there. And they wondered what I was going to do with those beer cans. So right before Christmas, I went out, cut a Christmas tree, and we decorated that tree with beer cans. It was beautiful. Everybody was thankful. We had a Christmas. Yeah.
And did you ever have leave? And were you able to interact with the Chinese people or
I
what?
never, no, we had a bus boy and he could hardly speak English, but he was funny and we did get along with him. I should tell you. No, I'm not going to say. One thing happened that it was not my fault, but it was. Anyway, I went into Chinese town, Kunming, and I didn't understand their customs and I did something that I wasn't supposed to. Anyway, that was that. Yeah, it was a good experience, and I didn't like living four men in a tent with a potbelly stove right in the middle, and it's cold outside, and you're sitting in there on your bunk, and it's freezing, and then you fly and you don't get. Although one time, it was in late November, we were on officers club, and they heard the air raid siren go off. Well, that meant when the air raid siren, they knew that there was approaching Japanese bombers coming in. So it was called one ball. Then the two ball said they're getting close. And when they hit three balls, they were over top of you. Well, they didn't have bomb size like we did, where they knew the bomb was dropping. They just dropped them anywhere. And so we sat in the officers club, and most of them went to the foxholes that we had. And the foxholes were on the opposite side of the rice paddies. Now, the rice paddies is built like a square checkerboard. Each corner, they had a pit for human manure to fertilize your rice. So it was getting close to those planes coming in bombing us. We decided it was late November. We better get out in our foxholes. So we went out to the foxholes. It was late November, frost on the ground. And after 500 troops went through there, it got very slushy. I made the first corner pretty good. In the second corner, I slid up to my waist in crap. Oh God, that was a worse. And I decided I'm just going to stay here till the war air went off. I stayed in there so they could take me out of there. So they stripped me of my clothes and they were going to give me a shower. A shower in those days consisted of an outhouse, and they had this bucket of water up top. You pull the rug, pull a rope, and it flushes you with water. But the water's ice cold and it's 30 degrees outside. I stunk for about six 6 weeks. The only time I didn't smell myself was when I had my oxygen tank on.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was funny.
What sorts of things did you have for recreation on base?
Uh, I never went off base. One time I went in Kunming, but I went back to base. I felt safe there because the Japanese infiltrated us. Uh, and they would come in at night, bomb or steal from you. And the Chinese communists were not our friends there either. They did they come down and raid us when we were flying missions. It was through your tent and take what they wanted.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we had trouble with the communists then.
What would you do between your missions on base? Would you play poker or?
On base, well, not much you can do in the base of the mountains. Some of the guys went hunting. I tried to go hunting one time, but I can't kill anything, so I didn't go. But they'd come back with something. Uh, but other than that, you listen to music if you had it. All World War II songs were popular back in those days. So yeah, I lived through it. Got it back.
And was there
But
lots of
we were going to go invade Japan. I didn't have to do that. Mm.
on base? Were there lots of diseases like malaria or dysentery? Or
Pardon?
did the men on your base suffer from diseases?
Oh
Like,
yeah, my pilot got tuberculosis, and shingles were a dime a dozen there. And, all these things, typhoid fever. Uh, if you didn't take care of your body and you didn't have the proper nourishment, you couldn't stay there long. I stayed there a year, which was probably too long because I could have gone after 35 missions. Uh, and I lost a lot of weight, but I came back and make up for it. Yeah.
did you feel isolated in, at the base?
Isolate? No, you always had friends.
Mhm.
Yeah. You form a camaraderie with your crew. And I fortunately had two crews that I could burn with my main crew. And then they put me on the commanding officer's crew. And so I had another crew I could, and I kept up with them all during the war. I think just about everybody I ever knew there is dead. All my friends now that I play golf with or play poker with or bowl with, they're all gone. As you get old, I tell you, it's not fun. If you're young and you want to live to be an old man, I remember you have to do two things. One, you have to be healthy, and then two, you have to be wealthy. You got to be able to afford living a long time because the longer you live, it takes a lot. You go to the doctors much more, medications much more. But fortunately, I prepared for that. Yeah.
I've got
Okay.
just a couple more questions about your time in Burma or
Yeah.
in China. Um,
China.
what did you ever fly any night missions?
I,
Did you ever fly any missions at night?
at night. Oh yes. We uh we went to Hong Kong, Hankow. We were bombing the Martian yards. It was at night, and it looked like you're flying into a Fourth of July celebration. It was the most terrifying things you could fly through, and you had to go through it. and but it was night flight was not nice.
How different was it to aim with the Northern bomb sight at night versus day?
Uh, it was it was the first computer, and it was reliable. It it was used properly. It was a very useful tool. I I contribute all my success to the Northern bomb sight. I wouldn't have a Pepsi.
Was it much harder to aim at night, aim your bombs at night than during the day?
uh, at nights, every mission I went on at night, it was never single. It was always with a group or squadron. There were multiple planes going over at the same time. You kept so busy looking around, you didn't even know there was trouble coming up ahead. But you got over it, and you didn't get hit and go down, going back home. Yeah, life was cheap there in those days. That's where all the men had died, like our Major Marshall. I was with him the day before we went, and we're kidding around. Next day he did. Not right. Yeah. Are we about done now?
Yeah, I'll ask you about two more questions and we'll be
Okay.
done.
Okay.
Um, let's see. So, so many historians call the CBI as a forgotten theater of World War II. Do you
Yeah.
feel like that's true?
What was that? Repeat that.
Do you feel like the CBI theater of World War II is typically forgotten?
Oh, it was rough.
Do you feel like the theater is usually forgotten or left out of histories on World War II?
Yeah, I guess it did. No, I don't. I didn't get the question really.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'd
Another
like
one.
to also ask you, what advice would you have for my generation and future generations?
Yeah. I don't know that there's never been a war that was won by the United States that was better than, I mean, resulted better than World War II. The wars like Korea, we didn't win. Vietnam War, we didn't win. Afghanistan, we didn't win, but we went in there. But the wars nowadays, you don't. It's not like just winning and losing. Uh, you're always in threat of a atomic attack. Uh, it's more dangerous now than back in those days because you don't know who your enemy is. In World War II, in China, we knew who our enemy was, the Japanese, and they were brutal. Uh, they did not like Americans. And, I never buy a Japanese car. I shouldn't say this, but I've been watching the World Series, and I think the Los Angeles Dodgers are half Japanese. You watch the games?
No, I don't watch baseball, but
Yeah, all there are a lot of Japanese players on that team. So I'm hoping the other team wins. Toledo. But you can't be prejudiced. You can forgive, but you can't forget. That's my theory.
I'd like to ask you, as the last question, what
Okay.
advice would you give to my generation and future generations?
Uh, learn to get along with one another and learn to discuss what your problems are. You cannot go on hating people like some people just hate Trump. Anything he would do, they find fault with. It's not right. I mean, he just does a lot of good things, and he's doing good things now. But certain people, they would just soon see him dead. You know, they try to kill him a couple times. That's not right. But you got to learn this. The world is so in before it was so isolated, but now everybody combines and you're one of a many, and you got to learn to live with one another.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I think that's very sound advice. So
good. All right.
it's been a real pleasure speaking with you and a real privilege. So
Okay. Well, I'm
thank,
glad I enjoyed it.
yes.
What are you going to do with this now?